Lazio Benevento. What happened? What did happen to Lazio? How many goals did Ciro Immobile score on Sunday? And why Benevento can score from corner kicks and Lazio absolutely can't? Still in the Champions League race. And what is the Super European League? Is Lazio now a title contender? All of this in Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, Alasdair McKenzie. Alasdair, before talking about Lazio Benevento, are we now fighting for the title with this Super European League? What's going on?
Well, yeah, suddenly Lazio are third place. So it would seem. No, God, I mean, it's been a pretty chaotic. Well, we're recording this early afternoon on Monday, so it's been a pretty chaotic kind of 24 hours since this news broke. For me, extremely angry to begin with, my reaction to it. Now, I find the whole thing quite depressing. It does look like 12 of Europe's top clubs, as they're being branded, are breaking away. Now, it does beg our belief that AC Milan, for example, are regarded as a top club, given they've not even qualified for the Champions League for 7 years. But leaving that aside, it's quite... I'm Tottenham and Arsenal. But it's just depressing news for football, isn't it, Vittorio? I mean, I don't know, what was your initial kind of reaction to it?
Well, there were rumors all Sunday morning that this would come out, so I was prepared in a certain way. It's terrible. I'm reading a lot of journalists here in Italy saying, it's inevitable, it's the right thing to do, etc. I'm pretty sure that if their team wasn't involved, they would be saying the same thing we are saying, that it's terrible. It's against football, right? You qualify for this league just because you are a famous club, which is the opposite of football. Leicester won the Premier League, Porto won the Champions League, and that's the best thing about football, right? And the other funny thing, as you were saying, when was Juventus last time that they won the Champions League? I mean, Arsenal, it's
96.
Ages they don't qualify for the Champions League. Manchester United is in the Europa League. Why are they qualified and not other teams? And, it's funny because this happened the day that Atalanta beat Juventus, but Juventus should be going to this Europa League, and Atalanta, who is a much better team, won't. So, I think I don't like Gary Neville, but what he said yesterday is absolutely right, and I'm 100% with him. And the thing that drives me crazy, Alasdair, is that in England, we are having the reaction I would expect, and in Italy, no. Except Gazzetta dello Sport, surprising, a lot of other journalists are looking forward for this competition.
Really, I haven't seen much of that. I think most of the reaction I've seen has been extremely negative. And I think the reason for that is that, as you touched upon there, this whole thing feels like it's been designed entirely by people who don't care about football at best, or who actually actively hate football at worst. Because the best thing about football, as we know, is the competition. That's what keeps it interesting. That's what makes it the massive worldwide phenomenon that it is as a sport, the most popular sport in the world, is the fact that these underdog stories do happen and do exist. And I've seen it written, which I think is absolutely spot on, that if you take away the peril, if you say there's a Super League where there's no promotion or relegation and every team is playing the same teams every week, if you take away the peril of getting things wrong and being punished and the financial implications of that and your fans being angry and the coaches being sacked, once you strip all that away, it doesn't become sport anymore, it becomes content. And that's essentially what this is. There's just a filtered down, never-ending stream of content where people kind of try and monetize as much as they can the players that they've got on the pitch. And it's not a huge surprise because football's been going this way a long time. And there's been a hell of a lot of hypocrisy in terms of the reaction to it from the various federations and league bodies who are massively responsible for us ending up in this position in the first place. But that doesn't make it any less depressing that this is where we find ourselves. And for me, it's not a club issue. My response to it, my anger about it, isn't actually related at all to the fact that I support clubs who aren't involved in this. It's about what it says for the game and about what it means for the future of the game. And I think from that perspective, it's very worrying.
Can I add something that should really drive Italian people crazy. So we know that equity funds wanted to enter in Serie A and bring fresh money. They're talking about 3 billion euros to the Serie A. And Andrea Agnelli was one of the presidents that was allowed to speak with them to find a deal. Incredibly, they didn't find a deal. And now it comes up that Agnelli was one of the founders of this Super European League. And then, you know, in Italy, we always think about these things. And it makes me think Agnelli did this on purpose because he didn't want that other Italian clubs got all that money, because with that, the Super European League would be useless because all the Serie A club would have money. So this really annoys me because Agnelli was working for that and at the same time was boycotting Serie A, which is for me awful and prove how he's unworthy and he doesn't deserve to be top of a European competition. And now FIFA, UEFA, and local leagues have warned, saying that if clubs participate to this Super League, they will be banned from their competition. This means that next year Juventus, Milan, and Inter won't be able to participate to Serie A, Champions League, and so on. I think this is the right move. People saying, well, without those teams, Serie A will lose a lot of money. But I believe that at the same time, these clubs will lose a lot of money because for me, there's no pathos. This is a friendly match, I would say. There's no the pathos of winning the Champions League. Who cares who wins the Super European League, right?
But this is the thing. It's not for us, is it? It's not for fans. It's not for people who go to the stadium, people who have got a history of supporting a club, who know about the tradition and what it means to the community. All these things that we think of as football fans as being absolutely tied to your identity as a supporter. That's not who this is aimed for. This is aimed for the global international audience that they want to sell it to. You know, they can take games on tour to the Far East or to the States or to the Middle East or wherever it is, and they're just wanting to monetize this as being this big Harlem Globetrotters league, where it's basically, like you say, it's almost like the glorified friendly matches, because that's all that's at stake here. There's no peril involved in it whatsoever. I think that a hard stance has to be taken on it because, you know, FIFA and UEFA have said that players involved in this competition won't be able to play for their national teams. They have to back down on everything they're saying. I think the leagues and the federations have to be so hard on this, because the other thing is that so much of their revenue of UEFA, for example, is taken from the Champions League. If the Champions League is devalued by the fact that the Super League is invented, the trickle-down effect is enormous in terms of what that means for the money given to federations, therefore the money that trickles down to grassroots level, therefore the amount of players who actually come through systems in, say, smaller countries like Scotland, for example, becomes a hell of a lot harder for those small countries, and it's all down to the greed of 12 clubs to make even more money from a system that they're already massively being favoured by. It's pathetic.
Yeah, the thing I want to point out that this club don't understand is that there's a big problem in football. Under 35 years old don't watch football, don't watch live matches, hardly watch highlights. But this is not the solution. Tottenham Arsenal playing in this Super European League won't bring Indonesian 25 years old to watch this match when there's nothing for. There's not a rivalry. You know, it's not a derby. There's not that pathos. So this is not the solution to the problem. The solution has to be different. So I understand that they are selling it not for us, for abroad, for Indonesia, but that won't solve the problem of football. No.
And look, there's a lot of argument as well about what this actually means, whether this is going to happen, and whether it's a lot of people reporting this because of the moves that have been made, you know, like Agnelli resigning from the ECA and clubs dropping out of UEFA and ECA positions. But then again, we have been in this position before a few times where there's been the risk of the Super League, and that's basically been used as leverage by these clubs to get even more favourable kind of arrangements in terms of the structure of the Champions League and European football. So we'll have to wait and see where we actually end up with this. because it's still very fresh. But I think that the reaction, it's not just us who are feeling this way. It's if you go on Twitter right now, it's an absolute kind of barrage of abuse from fans, and mostly and very loudly fans of the clubs who are involved, which I think is very important. That says a hell of a lot. And they feel very let down by this.
I saw Liverpool fans putting banners against this. So this is really interesting. Guys, if you want to hear more, if you want us to talk more about this, then write us in the comments and maybe we can do a special episode of Lazio Lounge. But we have to say that for Lazio was a very important Sunday. Lazio Benevento should have been the Inzaghi brothers fight, but Simone was still out for COVID. Rumors are he could be back next Thursday. Lazio's back next Thursday. Another very important match. Alasdair, in a little bit, it reminded me a little bit of Cagliari Parma on Saturday night. I thought after the 3-0 of Lazio, this could be an easy match, but it's never easy with Lazio this year, right? You can never relax.
I honestly couldn't believe it. I could not believe that even this match ended up being one of those, like all the matches we've had recently, where you're going into the last 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but for me, kind of walking around the room nervously, waiting for disaster to strike. And yeah, it's so frustrating because again, it's the lack of a 90-minute performance, this time in a totally different way. It's so hard to put a finger on what this Lazio team is right now, because we've had performances before where it's all been very controlled, but they've not managed to really create or take the chances that they do create, and that's been the issue. And then we have a game like this that goes in the complete opposite direction, where Lazio absolutely blow Benevento away, and twice have 3-goal leads, and still then manage to throw goals away to end up, very, very much at risk of it throwing away to a draw at the end. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's just so unlike the other matches we've seen.
Especially because I don't know about yourself, but I was very upset when Benevento scored the first goal in the first half. I thought that was the wrong moment. The first half is finishing, you end up 3-0, it's over. And then starting of the second half, immediately Lazio score again. And I thought, okay, this is it, right? I was already checking if Raul Moro was on the bench so he could finally have some minutes. And then I'm thinking, well, now we can rotate because Thursday there's a very important match. And what happens? Immediately Lazio stop playing and Benevento scores. Goal being disallowed, then another penalty, etc. I mean, I don't know. I thought after the Correa's goal, I don't know, I'm giving it to Correa, the second one, but it's an own goal of Montipo, I think. I thought they simply disconnected with the match. They started thinking about Thursday.
Yeah, and I felt like it almost replicated how you feel as a fan, which it shouldn't. But, once you're 3-0 up, you might be scrolling on your phone or cracking jokes or, a bit more distracted because you feel a bit like, oh, well, this game's over now. Like you say, who's on the bench? How can we rest players? This is done and dusted. It was frustrating, the Marco Sau goal, because again, like the Daniele Verdi one against Spezia, it's like an absolutely brilliant goal. And it's a bit annoying that that happens against you. But like you say, coming just before halftime, that is enough to give a team belief. It's, as everyone always says, a bit of a cliche, but it's the worst time to concede, even if you're 3-0 up. And I said at halftime on Twitter, I said, even 3-1 up, Lazio don't do comfortable wins. So I'm still not sure about this. And lo and behold, get lucky. Let's not forget Benevento did equalise before it was correctly ruled out by VAR, but the corners, you mentioned it right at the start. Not only have we been frustrated about the lack of attacking threat at corners, but defensively yesterday it was a disaster, wasn't it?
How can it be possible that Benevento is able to score twice from corner kicks? And I mean, in the last year or so, Lazio scored once probably from corner kicks. I mean, this is something that drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I felt like it was strange because you felt like you needed some leadership on that pitch, something to kind of change the tide a bit. And inject a bit of belief, calm the nerves a bit about the players when they were up against it. And when the substitutions were made and we had Lulic and Parolo come on, you're thinking, oh, well, it's not exactly the most imaginative change in the world and it's hardly going to set this game on fire. But maybe the least it can do is, okay, these are two of your most experienced players, the captain and one of your vice captains, coming on. They can at least, get this team firing again, get them fighting, change the mentality. But we didn't see that either. And I thought the substitutions were a bit of a mess, to be honest. Akpro coming on, getting booked, coming off.
Yeah, how sad. I felt a little bit sad because I was saying, the match is over, bring on some youngsters. And what does he do? Lulic, 36 years old, Parolo, 36. Wow, are these the youngsters of Lazio? Are we playing a senior league now? I mean, it's true. Lazio Primavera was playing at the same time. So Raul Moro and all the youngsters were involved in the Lazio Primavera. They drew 3-3. It was important for the relegation, etc., etc. But
and they're in the Coppa Italia final.
Yeah. Bring in someone else, Andreas Pereira, maybe he had a chance yesterday, and he said Parolo and Lulic.
Do you think that was Faris' choice, or that's Inzaghi on the phone to him on the bench saying, this is what we need?
Well, I think Inzaghi makes the choice still. One thing, and I think this is a valid point, probably without having Inzaghi on the bench, with Inzaghi on the bench, things would have been more different. He's a motivator. He would have guided the team in that second half, struggling. He would have keep up the concentration, which Fares wasn't able to do. I think that's the biggest difference that Lazio felt without Inzaghi.
Yeah, which was something we talked about after the last game, wasn't it? The fact that that's probably one of the biggest things you notice in his absence is not having that noise and that energy from the touchline. But still, I don't think that's by an excuse at all. It was frustrating because I think the first half otherwise was as good a half as we've seen Lazio play all season, probably, especially against the smaller teams in the league, taking their chances, giving very, very little away defensively. They were completely dominant until that goal flew in. So it's frustrating to again not be able to see a 90-minute performance, but we can also and should also focus on the positives, because it was a win. It was a 5th win in a row, and we've had Juventus lose, Roma lose, and Napoli draw. So it's an important weekend.
And I would say one of the things we were asking for is Ciro Immobile to score again. He did. How many times did he score? 2, 3? How many are we giving him? I think legally it's 2 goals, right? And an own goal.
Yeah.
But
well, he could have had 5 though.
Yeah.
He hit the post. One was given as an own goal, and then for some reason, obviously, he missed a penalty, and then also Correa took a penalty, which he probably should have taken. So actually, could have been 6 goals. Could have had a double hat-trick.
I'm happy that Correa asked to take the penalty because he could have missed even that one. So maybe it's better like that. I mean, but we saw improvement. I thought Ciro Immobile played better than in the last games. You could see a better Ciro Immobile. So that was encouraging. Yes, he missed the penalty. He was really upset. I don't know if you saw him after he missed the penalty. He was really upset. But improvement, and we said it. Ciro Immobile is fundamental to keep the chance of the Champions League alive for Lazio. So seeing scoring is very important. Seeing Correa as well scoring 1.5 goal was really important, because we said we cannot rely only on Ciro Immobile. We have to see the other strikers scoring. And Correa played well, scored once on a penalty, and the second one, well, was deflected by the goalkeeper. So I think that's the most positive thing about the match, right, Alasdair? We cannot say about the clean sheet because, again, we didn't keep a clean sheet, but at least we start scoring again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we've been crying out for. It was only it's the first time this season Lazio scored as many as 5 goals, so it's the best we've had this season. But it's only I worked out the 5th time in the 30 games we've had this season that Lazio have even scored more than 2, which for at this stage of the season isn't particularly impressive. So yeah, I think that's the biggest positive for me was definitely Ciro's performance because, like we say, yes, maybe he should have finished with more goals than he had, but the fact that he's reached this landmark finally, 150 Serie A goals, which by the way is an incredible achievement and is an achievement. You know, he's I think there's only 4 players in Serie A history who've managed to get to 150 quicker than Ciro. One of them being Beppe Signori, but. Yeah, Correa too. You're absolutely right. We've criticised him for not being, good enough in front of goal. Have to say, if he hadn't won a penalty when he did, I would have been very angry with that man because it was the 2nd game in a row that he could have just squared the pass for a tap in and he didn't.
Yeah.
So it's just as well that he got the penalty.
Do you think it was a penalty? Because in Italy. They complain about that, but I think the rule is pretty much clear, right? If you touch the ball but then hit the other player, that's a foul. As a goalkeeper, I don't like it, I have to admit, but this is the rule. So
yeah, exactly. I think for the goalkeeper, it's really harsh because he gets a touch before the player goes into. I think there were a few dodgy, or at least debatable calls in this game. I feel like both not both penalties, but the Benevento penalty and then the goal being disallowed. I feel like yes, probably Marasic shouldn't have his arms around a player, but it's a corner that if we're going to start using VAR to look at those, it wasn't exactly a rugby tackle and. It's just going to be endless if we start looking at all of those. But same with the push on Ciro. It's a bit of jostling in the box. That's what happens. I think unless it's something like a proper attack on someone, we should probably just let it go.
Yes, I agree with you. But then at the same point, you have VAR, and this happened a lot of time, every time, and some have been whistled and some not. So the problem is, if you start giving this penalty, then you have to give them all. And against Lazio, we saw so many of this penalty. So if you decided to give this penalty, then you have to give them all. And that's what happened Sunday against in Lazio Benevento. Every foul, every little push, it's a foul, it's a penalty, or it's a goal disallowed. That's how it has to be. Because unfortunately in Italy, we see that some teams get penalties very soft and other one don't. So if you give soft penalty, then you have to give it not only for Milan but for all the other teams, and this is what happens. 20 VAR, okay, this is the new football. Not happy, I don't totally agree, but if you give them to one team, then you have to give it to all of them.
I know, it's just funny, isn't it? Because with that combined with the handball rule as it is now, I just imagine the future of football at corner kicks. Everyone, okay, so you're not allowed to touch the person you're marking, but you also can't have your arms out. So everyone just kind of running around with their hands beside their backs, waiting for the corner to come in, just shuffling around like penguins. I mean, I don't really understand how, like, at what point it just becomes a complete non-contact sport. But if you're not like, hey, don't touch anyone and don't use your hands for anything, maybe we're going to have to start handcuffing people before games. I don't know.
And even like this, Lazio won't score on a corner. I tell you this.
Well, one of the comments we had, Stephen Scarpilla said, was Murici signed to defend long balls? If so, he's doing a fine job.
Yeah, he was perfect.
Maybe now that Marasic has been tried at centre-back, we can get Murici back as a centre-back.
Yeah, my son during the match said, he's a centre-back. Now I get it. So, again, as we said here on the pod often, he's different from Ciro Immobile. He needs the ball in the box. He doesn't need it to run deep back the defense. And this didn't happen. So, if you have Murici, you have to play Murici football. If you don't have Murici, you play the other type of football. This is easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So why don't you do it? I mean, And Lazzari had so many chances. The one at the end where he, instead of passing the ball to Ciro Immobile in front of the goal, sent it directly in the curva. So I can understand Lazio has problem with crossing the ball in the box, but if you have Murici, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I know it's. I think in that kind of game, at least, you want him to relieve pressure. You want him to get the ball up to him, to get him to protect the ball, to win fouls, to hold it up. And I didn't feel like we really got enough of that either. He had one chance and it was blocked, I think. But I think that the main frustration was probably in the defence. I mean, one of the comments seen here on Twitter is, well, Toronto football fans said the defence was awful today. Our lines were a mess. We took on too much pressure. Granted, how much of that is due to Simone Inzaghi not being there? Maybe we should take it easy because it's the assistant's second game and we still pulled through. Which is true. I mean, I think there's a lot of this, isn't there, Vittorio? And we've just done the same thing where it's frustrating because of what went wrong, but Lazio did still win the game. So I think any criticism has to be laced by the fact that they did pull through, like he says, and that's something that not every team would manage to do. So even though it wasn't comfortable, we did get there at least.
Again, with Lazio, you can always see it two ways, right? Fifth victory in a row, so we should be super happy. But again, 5 victory, none of them came easy. And we didn't play against Real Madrid or Juventus. We played against Benevento, Verona, etc. And we struggled against this. But it was really fundamental for the Champions League chances. Now Thursday we have a very, very important match. Napoli is playing great football. I saw it yesterday against Inter. So that's the thing that scares me more, Alasdair. I was hoping to see Napoli struggling. Instead, they played really, really well. And, that's a concerning point because Lazio didn't play as well as I was hoping. So Thursday at Napoli, no fans, so that's a big advantage. But seeing Napoli yesterday and Lazio is going to be tough. And we need to win, right? Because to keep it up for the Champions League, we need 6 points against Napoli and Milan.
Probably, yeah. It's a huge opportunity against Napoli now as well because of the fact that their draw with Inter means that Lazio can actually overtake them with a win in this game, and not only overtake them, but overtake them with the game in hand still to come, which incredibly annoyingly we still don't know when or if that
will ever be played.
Maybe in 5 years' time there will be a game played. But anyway, it's like you say. I'm also worried about Napoli. I think they're playing some good stuff at the moment. For me, this entire game hinges on how well the midfield does. I think that Gattuso's found a really good balance there now with Fabian and Demme and Zielinski playing a bit further forwards. Zielinski's a brilliant player, and I think that in order for Lazio to get something from this game, Lucas or whoever plays in that defensive midfield role is going to have to do a very good job of shutting him down. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's going to be a proper test of where Lazio are now, because it's easy to reel them off, isn't it? 5 wins in a row, 9 wins in a row at home, and it's possible to put a positive spin on things. But we all know that Lazio haven't been playing all that convincingly recently, so this will be another level.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, I mean, if it was Milan, I saw Milan in the last weeks. They're not playing great football. They have been really, really lucky again on Sunday. But Napoli is playing very well. They're winning, and they're winning because they're playing better than the other teams. They're conceding something. The defense is not great. Again, yesterday, they made a couple of mistakes. So Lazio has to be really, really perfect and take the chances, which is probably the most concerning thing, Alasdair, because we are not taking all the chances we're having. So we have to be perfect on Thursday. Again, it's going to be important even for them. So, I think they have a huge talent, especially from midfield onwards. Napoli is a very, very good team and probably have more options than Lazio. But still, the starting 11 of Lazio is able to beat Napoli. And we saw it this year and last year. But Lazio have to step up. play much better than they played in the last couple of weeks or so.
I can't remember the exact numbers on the top of my head, but I seem to recall that Inzaghi's got a pretty good record against Gattuso actually, as well as a coach, and so I think it'll be pretty important having Inzaghi back on the bench, which it sounds like hopefully he should be by Thursday. I think just having had him away for 2 games and having him back again will already be a boost. But the fact it's for such an important game in a match that we've won as recently as, when was it, December? I think it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, you know, we've seen that before with Juventus last season, for example, that if Lazio can beat a big opponent once, they can get the belief that they can repeat that and do the same thing again. And Napoli used to be a team that Lazio just couldn't beat. Well, under Sarri, it was impossible.
Yeah.
But now that's changed a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be a very busy week for us. We have to see what happens with the Super European League. Lazio has a very important match, and then Monday again there's Lazio-Milan, another very important match, especially if Lazio is able to beat Napoli on Thursday. So we're going to be back soon, guys, so check it out. Follow us on our social accounts. Follow our podcast on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, and on YouTube. And we're going to be back after Napoli-Lazio, hoping for another win and good performance from Lazio. Thank you again, Alasdair.